So here's the thing about spiritual awakening. A lot of people don't understand what's going on with spiritual awakening. They don't understand the nature of it, what it looks like, and why it happens. I mean, there's so many stories out there nowadays on YouTube and other places about spiritual awakenings, and in like some yogic traditions or Indian traditions, it's like Kundalini awakening, spiritual awakening. Okay. So I've mentioned this in some other videos. You may have multiple spiritual awakenings. It's not uncommon at all. It is very rare where you just have the one awakening and then you fully step into yourself and like you reach eventually, maybe even immediately, this nirvana, this moksha, this enlightenment. Ooh, fancy words. And now that you've achieved this state of being, you are the greatest, right? You are high. I'm just better than you, right? Is that how it works? Well, part of understanding the enlightened path and the barrier to entry is getting over that last hurdle of humility. Most people have no fucking clue about this humility, how important it is. And for me, like I said, it was my last lesson, because the arrogance and the pride, it disguises itself very keenly, very manipulative. So, like I say, you have to tap into the humility if you want to get there. But that's one aspect of many, was one lesson of many lessons that you learn along the way. There's like, when you boil it down to it, guys, it all stems from fear. And then on top of the fear is insecurity. Like fear, how it looks in our lives and how we behave, this energetic thing that we're giving ourselves to, it's all layered insecurities, right? And then if you were to go and look at like the 7 deadly sins, every single one of them is an insecurity, right? Gluttony, pride, lust, whatever, vanity, all of these things are insecurity. And so you're trying to fill this void within yourself because you haven't really rooted yourself in yourself. It's all paradoxical when you start using words to describe this self, because it's a higher self, it's God, but it's also yourself. It's synonymous. The spark of what you are, your soul, your spirit, is synonymous with it, okay? But with this awakening, a lot of people out there are chasing an awakening, okay? So either you've come across the idea of what an awakening is, a spiritual awakening, or you had a spiritual awakening and then you read up on stuff and you heard, oh, that's what I experienced. It was an awakening of some sort. Where what happens is the veil, the ignorance, the fear, this conditioned self is temporarily removed, and now you're yourself and you get to look at life through that for a period of time. And that period of time varies for people. And within each awakening you may have or may not have, whatever, which within each awakening, it might last different periods of time. Sometimes it might be 3 minutes, a few minutes. Sometimes it might be 3 weeks, 3 days, 3 months, right? And then most of the time it's short-lived, right? Because if it wasn't short-lived, then that means that you've stepped into yourself. It's the awakening that keeps on awakening. It's the awakening where you're just in it now and you just see this truth. Like I say, once you see it, you cannot unsee it, okay? But what happens with the one that wakes up and then they don't fully get there? Well, you buy back into this physical reality. You buy back into your story. You buy back into your conditioned self. You buy back into the fear. You let the insecurity come in and take hold of you again, okay? And part of waking up, part of having the grand spiritual awakening that everyone's chasing, is that while you're in it, you're noticing these truths and you're having dawnings of realization and knowings that are coming into you and you're making it known to you. You're like, oh, this is how this works. Oh, when I do this, or when I don't do this, this is what happens. This cause and effect karmic thing that happens, right? When I say karma and a portal within you of karma and etheric ties and karmic cords, all these things, these all are like substrata of mind and conditioning and fear and ego, these are all very interchangeable words that are basically pointing to the same thing. Okay? So if I say karma, you can move karma, and like karma becomes the devil. Karma becomes illusion. Karma becomes whatever shadow you have to work through to purge. In one of my other videos, I'm like, you've had your awakening, but there's still going to be final stuff to purge. Okay? Just because you have this awakening doesn't mean that like you're home free. That's very rare. Like I say, it's the 1 in 10,000, 1 in a million that just steps fully into their enlightenment without doing really any work. It just comes at you and you're like, I am enlightened now. No, it doesn't work that way for most people. Most people have to traverse layers of hell, layers of purgatory, layers of Hades itself. This nastiness, this muck, and it takes up shop in you, and it builds up even physical representations within you. These energies, they manifest physically eventually if you don't address them. That's what illness is. And then you can become conditioned through your illness. You can become attached mentally to your illness. And then that becomes a part of you. And then that's now another layer of karma that you're burning through. See, this karma, you come in with karma, you come in with a story, with conditioning, with a plan, lessons that you need to learn, check them off, a checklist of stuff that you have to learn. Okay? This is the karma that you come in with. But while you're here, you're also adding karma to the list through your misalignment. So you come in, and we can put arbitrary numbers, right? Let's say you're 80% away from full realization, God's self, okay? 80%. You come in, though, with like 30%. Let's just throw arbitrary numbers as an example. You come in with 30%, but then as the years pass, as you layer yourself into yourself, conditioned, all these mental baggage constructs that you're just very willingly buying into, you're adding percentages. And now you're 30 or 40, and you're 80% shit you gotta work through. You added 50% layers of bullshit to see through, conditioning, attachment to nationality and religion and illusory mental constructs that you're very willing to think is you. And it's just layered on top of you that you are literally giving your soul to, selling your soul to the devil. These constructs, these illusions are the devil. No one's gonna tell you that, though. In Christianity, the devil's like this demon thing that comes in and it's like you gotta exorcise the demon. They're not gonna tell you that your mind is basically the demon itself, or at least the illusory aspect of your mind is the devil itself, the Maya, the illusion. Mara, whatever. There's a bunch of different words for it. Because the devil has become personified as this entity that's just like, nah, you know, like in hell, and it torments you for all eternity because you just weren't aligned enough in this lifetime. You were a sinner. Oh, you know, just fucking beat yourself into submission, whip yourself, you know, do all the shit because you're just such a sinner. So waking up, awakening, spiritual awakening is realizing all of these things, realizing them, getting it, like really understanding it, like getting it. You see through it. It doesn't fuck with you anymore because you're like, how silly. This devil is like a joke. The devil's a weak little bitch. The devil is just like pompous and like, you know, very brazen, very intimidating, right? Oh my God, how terrifying the devil. But the devil's a little bitch. When you are in yourself, the devil's nothing. You cast it out. It is nothing over you. That's the full awakening you step into. You see how the devil infiltrates people in front of you and it acts out through them. And you just laugh at it because you're like, the devil's got you by the balls. You're so ignorant. You don't see how you've lost yourself to it. And there's scales of this. There's a spectrum, the degree to which you lose yourself in the devil. The fully possessed, demon-possessed person to just your average Joe who just gets angry or sad or whatever. There's a whole spectrum of how possessed you are. It's crazy. Right, and if I start talking about possession and energetic, you know, negative, fearful condition stuff, it's too far outside of the realms of psychology and modern psychiatric scientific analysis. It's too woo-woo, but these energetic things are there. It's just different words labeling these energetic things that take up shop in you. Now with this awakening though, you're gonna have many of you, And some of you that are watching, a lot of you maybe even that are watching my channel, have had an awakening of some sort, or two, or three, okay? But why haven't you stepped fully into yourself yet? This is what I had to learn about myself. I've had 5, maybe 6 awakenings, and the final clarity, okay? Why wasn't it the first or second or third time I did it, I didn't fully step into it? Why did it take 5 or 6? Why not after the third one? Why not after the second one? What's going on here? You guys don't realize that you can get, even if you're awakened, you may be more awakened than the average person that's just really has no clue about spirituality and the aspects of themselves. They don't really know. They don't consciously know it. Everyone subconsciously knows it. Everyone is tapped into this subconscious energy of God. Everyone is. Subconsciously, you know it. But there takes work to make it conscious realization within. Okay? So you're a little more awakened than the average person. You've had an awakening even. You understand the majority of the stuff I'm talking about. You've come across it at some point in one shape or form. Makes sense, right? But why haven't you stepped into yourself? It is natural to fall back into the purgatory, the hell, this fearful illusion, to get caught up in it when you've had an awakening. Because then, or else everybody after their first awakening would just magically be enlightened, wouldn't they? No. How many people out here, it's like they ask questions even like on YouTube or other spiritual teachers are like, I had my awakening and then like, I still can't, I just still don't see. I still don't see. I still don't see the true sight. Because you come out of the veil lifts, the veil goes away, and you see the true sight in this awakening. You see it. That's why you can relate to what I'm talking about. You're like, I know that feeling of like, oh my God, it makes sense intuitively beyond the mind. It makes sense. I see the nature of reality. I see the lie and the fear, and I see the love and the peace. I see all of these energetic properties. I see them temporarily. Now what happens? You come back in and you give power again to this story. You haven't done enough work to purge yourself. So what can happen is you can stay on a loop of awakening and falling back in and awakening and falling back in your whole life without ever realizing it. And what I'm saying is, guys, if you have even glimpsed even somewhat of an awakening, or that something makes sense from what I'm speaking, you can have your enlightenment too in this life if you actually sit down and do the final purge and do the work. And so what I had to learn was that I had not sincerely devoted myself. I was kind of half-assing it. And so God would give me kind of a half-assing awakening. Not the awakening itself, but it was a half-assing spiritual path. It was like you wake up and then you fall back asleep. You wake up 50-50. You wake up, you fall back asleep. You wake up, you fall back asleep out of the dream. You know? And then when we actually dream and sleep, it's like the dream within the dream. Layers of consciousness. It's also multi-layered. It's infinite. How many layers and how deep the rabbit hole goes. And you're never going to know that on the level of your mind ever. You're never going to understand all of consciousness ever. So at some point, you just let go of the need to try to understand it. And within letting go of that need is the enlightenment portal. The spark of wisdom itself. I don't know shit. God knows better than I do, always. And I'm going to align myself with that knowing that knows better than I do, always. And the further I get aligned with it, the more magnetic and powerful and just energetically aligned I am one with it and it in me. How magnificent. So, you wake up, you pop off even. And this is why it's dangerous, is that you can have an awakening and it spirals out of control and now you're bipolar. Now you're schizophrenic. Now you're whatever mental illness because you're just not ready for it at that time. So now you're mentally ill for the rest of your life. This is all bullshit. Or you go so deep into hell. The other polarity of the awakening, the utter hell, where it fully comes in and just masks everything. You see everything through a layer of shit. In everything, it's just nasty. Fuck this life, I hate it here. The depression gets you by the balls. That's the other polarity. That's also an illusion. So the polarities are the illusion. You want to be in balance. You want to be centered. You want to be grounded. That's what I had to learn. is that through the meditation and the prayer and the work, the introspection, the sitting with myself and looking at parts of myself, trying to find these blind spots. And like I said, the final blind spot was the humility, because the arrogance was ever present in me my whole life, thinking that I was more important than I ever was. And it's funny is that the less important you think you are, the more important you become. God's like, they get it. It's like those that seek power, those are the ones you don't want in power. And everybody that's in power nowadays, throughout human history, the ones that seek power because it comes from an insecurity and a greed and a lust for more and power, those are the ones you don't want in power. And the ones that don't want the power are the ones that you want in power, because they're humble, because they recognize the great responsibility that comes with this illusory power on the physical plane, that you have power, you have things, you have influence over others, that your decisions are important, they reflect and manifest in other people's lives through laws and commandments and rules, right? So let's make them as good as we can, while also recognizing that there's a place for forgiveness for those that stray, because we're not all perfect. How can you be? How can you always align yourself to some arbitrary perfection of a rule that some man makes? God exists outside of the rules, man. There's no rule. We only do it for our own behavior. So your awakening, like I say in a bunch of my videos, it's coming for you whether you realize it or not. Whether it's in this life or the next life or a dozen lives from now, it doesn't matter. It's coming for you. The question is, if you're watching a video of mine and this resonates and sparks something in you, you can have it in this life. You can break free from this bondage of hell that you're living, okay? And you're gonna have an awakening, and then you might have another going into hell again for some time, and then now you're back in that hell. Let's say you're even watching my videos and you're like, I've had this awakening before, Darius, but I'm back in hell again, and I just can't fight my way through all the brush. I'm like, I got a machete, I'm in the jungle, and I'm just cutting it all down, all the karma, all the illusion, right? But I'm not finding the path. You cutting down the bush, you cutting down all of this shit is the path. There is an element of blindness. That's the faith. That I'm on the path even if I don't consciously know I'm on the path. I don't have the answer in front of me, but I trust. Most implicitly, I trust. Every step I take, I am guided by God. Every step, every breath I take, I am animated by God. How could I not be on the path? Do you see how it is just a part of you? You can't escape it. So you're going to have multiple awakenings likely, guys, okay? And if you're in hell again, after having an awakening at some point, you must do the work. There's no escaping it. And these awakenings, and then falling back in, and awakenings, they're telling you that something's off in how you're approaching this. Because if it wasn't off, and everything was just okay, then you would have stayed in that awakened state permanently, at least in this life. You would have kept growing in realization into union. So if something feels off ever, then there's some illusion there. And the degree to which you're aligned with an illusion is like, on the scale, on the spectrum of how possessed you are. The greatest chosen one can still fall off the perch, man. The greatest awakened, enlightened master, a Jesus or a Buddha, if they were to give back into the temptation and the illusion, they would find themselves very quickly in hell again. It's just that it's more difficult for them to fall back into it, because by how clear the clarity is, by how truthful the truth is, you just see it, there's really nothing tempting you back into it. Because the moment something even temporarily feels off, you're like, oh, no. And it just falls away. It's like, you're just like, no. You get sick of feeling like shit by tormenting yourself. That's all you're doing. You're tormenting yourself through your mind, guys, all the time. Most of this suffering, 95, 99% is mind shit. Because it's the mind that labels. And then the mind that comes in and labels is not the true isness ever. So when you're resting in the isness, the peace, the platform of God, of life, unfolding in each moment, where there's no true past or future, where it's always right now, where it's always like similar to the timeless state that exists in the great beyond, where time is one, where you're one with God up there. There's no physical that's in between you and God. There's no physical that's tempting you. There's no nothing. It's just energetic layers of consciousness. And you're very tapped into it that way. And here, you're separate from everything physically. And your job is to learn union through separation. That even the separation, even the physical, has no power over you, does not dictate your life to you, does not have you by the balls, and made you a weak little bitch, where you're similar to this devil that I say is a weak little bitch. The devil comes in you, makes you the bitch. You're not the bitch anymore when you let go of the devil illusion. The fear. It's all fear, man. It's all fear. It's all layers of fear. It's all insecurity. All of it. They're interchangeable words for the same thing. And at your root, right now, if you're not feeling okay with yourself on any level, something's off in your life, there is some form of insecurity that must be purged. And how do you do that? You do the work. You sit down and you do the work. Or else you're just going to keep you're going to be oscillating in between degrees of awakening and awareness and then unconsciousness and just acting out patterns of conditioned Maya self. It's covered up shit. You're just constantly digging out the hole. You're just constantly digging. It's like, are you going to put down that work, that effortful struggle life, and instead take up the mantle of doing the actual work that will get you to the eventual freedom, the liberation that you're looking for, where even within the physical construct, you're still free? How paradoxical is that? How can you be free when you're still trapped in the physical? It's bizarre. Because you just stop caring so much. You care, but you also really don't care. There's a fine balance and a fine line that you're always straddling with this really not caring, but I also care significantly. There's like utter compassion while also just not giving a fuck about what it looks like, because it is all blessed, it is all holy. And so whether you awaken or not is irrelevant. I can give you your awakening right now. I'm like, poof, you have been awakened. The Holy Spirit has come into you. Woo! Yay, right? But now what are you going to do with that, though? What are you going to do with it? Because it's incumbent upon you. You have choice over your life. You have choice over how you do in any moment. Is this not correct? Or maybe you're an unconscious, ignorant person that doesn't have choice, that they're just acting out like, like a zombie. Just unconscious. There's really no choice in their behavior because they're so, forgive them, they know not what they do, unconscious. They're just so blind by their own insecurity, whether it's arrogance, whether it's pride, whether it's, hubris, whatever word you want to put for that arrogance. It's number one blinder. We have this just overwhelming need to make ourselves seem more than we are. We're just not okay with being ourselves. There's no authenticity. It's like layers of goodness, It's like I enter a place where I'm not insecure. Well, the opposite of insecure is authentic. The opposite of true insecurity is true authenticity. You're just okay. You're just fully yourself. You don't care. Someone's like, it takes a lot of courage to be your most authentic self on camera, Darius. It's like, you guys don't get it. There's no courage here. I'm not trying to be authentic. I'm just authentic. So it's just like, I couldn't not be authentic. I've lived that way my whole life. I refuse to go back to it. As soon as I feel a twinge of insecurity and like trying to like impress or be something I'm not, I see it very quickly and I'm like, no, I don't like that. Get rid of that shit. And so to the untrained eye, I'm going to come off as arrogant sometimes because you think that my confidence is an arrogance or my authenticity is an arrogance. It's not. It's just how I am. It's how I choose to express myself in any given moment. I can be the meek little whiny bitch that sits and is like, oh, I'm so spiritual. Look at me. I'm just going to sit and meditate all day. And I'm so quiet and still and perfect. La, 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 la. Ooh. I can do that. I could do that. It's kind of boring for me, though. Kind of boring. I like the flair. I like expression. That's why I like the gay community, because they don't care. I like the gay community because they're very expressive in themselves. They're almost here to show us to be the flamboyant, expressive self. How awesome they are. And yet we put them in with all these like they're sinners because they have the same sex. It's like, who cares? Who cares? I love you for you, man. I love you for being your flamboyant gay self. And I love you for being your flamboyant straight self. Flamboyance is like exhibitionist, show off, right? There's the showing off without trying to show off. There's a difference. The intention is what's the difference. The intentionality. If I'm going to do it because I'm intending to show off because I'm insecure, it's coming from an insecurity, you're going to see through it as insecure, hopefully. So that's why the message resonates more with most people that watch my channel. Because you guys, your resonant place, your intuition knowing self sees the same authenticity in me that is in you. So if I were to sit across from you in person, I would want you to be your most authentic self without your insecurity. And I'm going to understand there's going to be some insecurity. Maybe you're nervous. Maybe you're like, maybe you've even put Darius on a pedestal a little bit. It's like, oh, Darius, you're so cool. Like, I don't know. I don't want you, and you're going to see through my shit. And like, I don't want you to point out my shit, you know? People don't want to be called out on their stuff. It's okay, man. It's okay. Whether I point out your shit to you in an aggressive way or in a very nice, soft, compassionate way, it's perfect, however I choose to do it. And then your reaction from it is going to show you a blind spot that you may not be aware of. That's how this awakening stuff works. So you're going to have an awakening. It's going to come for you in this life or the next. The question is, what are you going to do when you finally awaken? Are you going to actually sit down and purge the final stuff? Or are you going to keep in the trap, potentially, of awakening and then falling back asleep and awakening and falling back asleep? And you can stay on that loop, guys. You can stay on that loop. The same thing that furthers you, once you've had an awakening, furthers you into your awakening and seeing, the same work of meditation and prayer is the same work that you need to do if you haven't had your awakening and you want it so desperately. So, if you haven't had an awakening yet, don't know what it's like, do the meditation and the prayer to bring your awakening to your doorstep. And if you've had your awakening, while you're in your awakened state, you do the meditation and the prayer to deepen that state of being that burns through the karma more efficiently. And then your truest self emerges, and how wonderful that day is when it comes.